today, so we're going to talk about how to take a mortgage application. And when I was thinking about what that all entails, the biggest word that came to mind, well, I'm going to put it out to you guys, because I always like to test you guys to see what it is that you think about. But again, we're kind of talking about how to take an application. And there's maybe I'll put it out that there's like 2 or 3 different words that come to mind when I think about taking an application. So what do you guys think about? And again, this is like the big picture. Like I'm thinking about the whole process of kind of welcoming in a client into the fold. So what do you guys think about when you think about taking an application, aside from being fearful of having to get on the phone?
What they are looking for, what their purpose is.
Okay. Purpose. Hang on, I'm gonna get my whiteboard going because I know Dean loves the whiteboard. Okay, purpose. I was gonna do it, and is this even possible? There we go. Purpose.
Still okay. Probably neater than mine, naturally.
No one's gonna be able to read this, so that's all good. Okay, purpose. Next.
Their level of experience.
So the client's experience level. Sure, give me hard words.
Their employment situation.
Okay, so we're getting really deep into kind of like file stuff. I want to think big picture. When we're thinking about clients and that application process, that's technical side. Like I want to know when we're thinking about in general, like if I'm going to go way back out like that 30,000 foot big view, what is the big view picture, not like zoomed in and what's the person's employment, but what is it about the application process that kind of we start to think about? What is the parts of it that should be like, hey, big picture, this is what I want to do?
Time frame.
Time frames is good. Yeah, that's also a little bit kind of, again, very specific to deals, but time frame is good because it starts to get a little bit big picture.
Payment, how much of a payment they can afford?
So affordability. Brent, I'm actually doing cursive writing here today. Okay, so
I see that.
Payment. Sorry?
I see that. Very nice.
Not easy. All right. Okay. So I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of a hint. When we think about the process of getting a new client in, so someone that doesn't know you at all, you bring them in, they're gonna require a development of a relationship. So to me, that's one of the big words is relationship. So this is really the big picture that I'm thinking of. So on one side, we've got relationship with the client, and this kind of comes back to some of these things. So like when we're talking about payments and their experience and their time frame, so these things kind of come to like a big picture purpose, which I think is really good. So I'm going to double underline purpose. But so client relationship. What else is kind of similar to relationship? Again, this is really big picture. Like we're really thinking about when it comes to how we have that relationship with a client. What is also kind of something that kind of factors into that?
You mean like rapport?
Yeah, so rapport and things like, you know, how they see you, your trust, you know, your trustworthiness. So those are all good. Let's put rapport. I think I know how to spell rapport, but I don't even really know if I do. Anything else? When it comes to relationships, when it comes to anything to do with that trust level, what do we have to know about the client, and what do we have to be experts in? So, like, think of someone with a big leather couch.
We have to ask thoughtful questions.
Yes, so I'll put big Q's. So what I'm trying to get at is we have to be kind of psychologists, right? We have to understand where this person's coming from. So this is kind of that idea of the relationship. And so we build on the relationship by asking thoughtful questions. These questions kind of give us an idea of purpose, time frame. It helps us develop rapport. And we do this by really understanding the human psyche. So I'll put psychology. Wasn't there a Greek symbol for this? Is it this one? Is it one that goes like this? I can't remember. Something like that. It was like a sigh. Anyway, so psychology is what I'm getting at. And psychology is kind of weird. And you might be thinking, well, we're talking about taking the mortgage application, so why the heck are we talking about psychology? This is not a psychology class. The reality is that a lot of what we do is people science. So how do we actually deal with people, and how do people deal with us, and how do we get them from a point where they don't know us from a hole in the wall to, I'm going to share with you my social insurance number, my tax returns, everything about me. Oh, by the way, I'm getting a divorce. So like there's all these things, this layer that some of their best friends probably don't even know, that we have to tap into. And so that's why I wanted to start with the whole idea of the mortgage application process, and this practical brokering is all about your ability to gain trust and to kind of understand where a person's coming from, so that they can entrust you with their details, so that they can make the proper moves forward. So we're going to talk a little bit about, so again, I've always got the three sides. We've got the technology side, the mortgage completion process, and lender relations. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this down a little bit different, in the sense that I'm going to start with lender relations. And you might think, well, that's kind of weird. I don't know why we start with lender relations. I want to figure out what we're doing with the client. But I want to create the foundation upon which we can create the relationship with the client, which is knowing that as brokers, we're both obligated to the client as well as obligated to the lenders. So we have a two-sided relationship. We have a fiduciary duty to both those parties, which is kind of pretty unique in that we're really acting as a backstop for the lenders as well. And so that's why I want to talk a little bit about the lenders, because it'll help us understand how to go about getting details from clients. So when it comes to lenders, and a lot of you guys might have kind of seen, discussions on mortgage broker forums, or even discussions amongst, all sorts of individuals. And you might have kind of seen people that are like, I don't really know if I need to tell you this, or there's a reluctance. When it comes to our relationship with lenders, we are their backstop. And if we know details, we have to communicate those details. That's our relationship. And the reason that that's important is not only because that's our integrity as mortgage brokers, that's the foundation upon which we can do our job. I know that sounds weird, but if we don't have the integrity, if our industry can't show that we are the first line of defense, Brent, stop it. You hang on one sec. If we can't show that we're the first line of defense, then lenders will stop trusting us, and it's potentially the first step to the downfall of our industry. So lenders have to be able to trust us, and for that reason, it's very important that we are the communicators of information to the lenders. So Brent, what you got?
All right. So Pete, I just wanted to touch on that because you just mentioned something about integrity. And I think as you go through your brokering career, you're going to find those situations where Pete says that maybe there's something, a detail that clients told you that the lender doesn't necessarily know. And that raises an ethical situation for a broker. And I know there are some brokers out there that have no issues kind of skipping past things like that. But if you go down that path, I mean, not only are you, I mean, you're basically breaking the law, but you're killing your relationship with lenders because those details always come out. So as you kind of progress through, you'll get put in these ethical spots where, you know, yeah, maybe a deal will die because you disclose a detail, but anything that you get disclosed or that's disclosed to you, you have to disclose to the lenders. It's just such a critical piece that I don't think you can reinforce that enough, that you are going to find those scenarios. And next thing you know, you're going to wind up on CBC if you don't take the right path. So just wanted to expand on that too.
Definitely not a place you want to be. You don't want to be on some expose. And it's crazy that we talk about exposés and people kind of coming into the spotlight in probably the worst possible manner. But we've seen that recently. I think there was a CBC marketplace report. It was within the last 2 or 3 weeks that uncovered that exact thing. It was realtors. I don't think there was any mortgage brokers that were implicated in that, but it was essentially, again, it was the lack of disclosures and the kind of trying to push things through. We see this a lot when it comes to markets that are super hot. So I think we've kind of seen super hot and now it's coming back down where things are cooling off a bit. But that integrity piece should always be with us. So this is why I wanted to talk about the lender side right at the beginning, because I do believe that what makes us unique and what makes, especially when it comes to White House mortgages as kind of part of the Dominion Lending Center's franchise, but mortgage brokers in general, is that we're super, very detailed and very adamant that integrity be a top-notch list of priorities. Integrity's got to be there because it's not, like Brent says, it's not about necessarily getting one file complete. If there's a reason that we shouldn't do a file, or there's a reason that we need to disclose something that makes a file not work, we should disclose that. Because I mean, if we look at it from really the end standpoint, which is what happens if this file goes through and something goes wrong, maybe that client should never have had that mortgage. Like it's not for us to try to find the sneakiest way possible to make this work, because really a lot of those rules and guidelines are there so that it essentially protects the end consumer. And if they don't quite meet the guidelines, then maybe it's not the right thing. So we have to look at all those things. This is not to say we don't try hard and we don't look at all various sources of income and we don't do all that. Do the due diligence, but if something makes the file not work, then we have to kind of be okay with that. And again, this also, not only does it go towards the collection of information, but the verification of the information. So a lot of people might say, hey, I got the job letter. It all looks fine. I'm just going to send it off. There's absolutely nothing wrong with you phoning the employer. So if anyone ever tells you, don't phone the employer, that's not your job, it's the underwriter's job. No, it's not. While it is the underwriter's job, it's also our job. And if something seems odd, then absolutely phone the employer. And you can just tell them, hey, this is mortgage broker working for this client. I just wanted to verify the details of the letter that you wrote. It's very easy. And what you might do is you might actually kind of do a couple more checks. Like you might do a Google search of the company, the employer. You might look to see what is their general phone number and just phone the general phone number and get that person. So there's ways of kind of going about it, because we have to be really, I guess we have to have a bit of a skeptical eye in the documents that we collect, because there is a lot of potential for funny business. Let's just call it funny business, because people can be a little, sometimes they can be desperate to get financing. And in those cases, again, we have to be really watchful. And in all cases, we have to be really watchful. So again, just doing your own checks and balances is not out of the realm of our job duties. And again, this goes to protecting the lenders. Again, when we look at our relationships with lenders, they're very important. We've got a person typically at most of those lenders who is looking at our files. That person is not only looking at our files, but they're going through the underwriting process. They're essentially working with us to make sure that a file funds and gets completed. Their goal is to get 100 out of 100 files done. If they can't get them done, you know, it's always kind of a bit of a loss because they're putting in time and effort. And if they don't necessarily get a file funded, that means that the lender themselves don't end up making money off a file. That's the only way they make money. They're not making money off of, like, they're not charging a client $500 to apply. In BC under prime lending, there's no application fees, there's no advance fees. Lenders only make money if a mortgage funds. So their goal, and again, this is kind of me backing up and saying, what is the big goal of lenders and why are lenders so concerned? Because realistically, even though they are big banks and a lot of them are large institutions, they're not just making hand over fist money. They actually have business models, and their business models tend to run kind of tight. So their expenses can be high. And if they're running through, out of every 10 applications that they receive, if they're only funding 2, that is a horrible business model, and they're going to be losing money. So that's why when they're looking at us as partners, they want to see that if we submit 10 files, that we hopefully fund somewhere in the range of 6 to 8 of those files. Typically, our funding ratio, just so you guys know, I think at the end of last year, we ended up around 82%. So we're funding 82 out of every 100 applications. That's insane. And just to let you guys know, that is almost, if it's not the top of the industry, we're in the top percentile. We are so specific about that. Like, it is nuts how crazy Deb and I look at the numbers and say, how is this number, are we submitting too many files in one place that are getting declined? So we're very particular about this because we value that relationship. And if we submit 100 files and get 82 funded, the lenders themselves start to look at us and say, okay, we can give a dedicated underwriter to this team. They deserve it because they're going to put stuff through. And then when we have that dedicated underwriter, we can then put stuff through faster because we know that Jill is looking at a file. And then we can call up Jill and say, hey, Jill, I know you're looking at the file, just wanted to communicate. So it becomes a really a good self-fulfilling prophecy in that if we do good stuff, we get good stuff, and in turn, the clients win. All right, so that's the lender side of things. I really wanted to cover why that side of our equation is super important. Do you guys have any questions on that side and why I kind of set that up as the base for what we want to do for clients? Oh, you guys are so patient and calm and quiet. Do you guys have any questions about lenders and what we've seen? What, I can tell you some stories about some crazy stuff that we see. So just so you're aware, you can have fraudulent or modified or altered documents of any sort. So that could be pay stubs. It could be a job letter. And don't think that this is just like the most stealthy of individuals that do this. Don't think that it's going to be like the absolute most perfect document. A lot of these things look like absolute turd. They don't, like, you should have alarm bells going off because you'll see them and you're like, this is really strange. This is a typed document, yet it looks like something is like at an angle. Really weird, like stuff that you're like, this is odd. So if you feel that it's odd, know that it probably is odd. To give you guys a sense, like you guys have worked with me for a little bit and you know me, I'm very much a detailsy, like black is black, white is white. I don't really read gray too well. I'm one or the other. I really kind of get, I can put stuff in one pile here, I can put stuff in the other pile, but I don't know. I don't really see the middle. So what I'm trying to say is I'm very literal. And so for me, I will oftentimes be very little. But what I've learned through this industry is that sometimes you're not just going to look at literal things. You have to trust what's inside. And if something doesn't feel right, and this is where literally it's like none of this is kind of a cognitive, cerebral, this is not a black and white thing. This is like, I don't know, this something feels right. Something in my tummy feels weird, or I just don't, I'm tensing up about this is not right. If it feels like that, reach out, because we can look at it and we can talk about it and talk about options on how to investigate or figure things out. But just know that we'll always stand behind. If you're trying to do your best to kind of uncover something that's not looking good or something that's not feeling right, then we'll do our best to support you to figure out why. I'm always way more supportive of that, and I'm 100% supportive of that versus you just putting stuff through or letting it fly because it just is the simpler solution. Let's always go with, let's investigate and figure it out, because that to me is us doing our job. Okay. So that's kind of fun. We talked about lenders. Now we're going to go into, and again, this is an interesting topic today because we're talking about the whole taking of an application, the practical side of getting to kind of know people. I'm going to talk a little bit about technology, just so you guys get, like, we've talked about history of where this goes, but I'm going to talk about how technology can help us in doing what we do. And then the kind of bulk of it is going to be like that whole, I call it the mortgage completion process, but as part of the mortgage completion process, it's really the whole thing that we're talking about today. It's about how do we get clients? How do we talk to those clients? How do we get the application? How do we bundle that application? How do we send it off? And lastly, how do we follow up? So I'm going to talk a little bit about technology. Old days, we used to meet with clients. This is very different today. So you might actually, in some cases, you might actually never face-to-face meet a client. And that's okay. This is the world that we're in today. The pandemic obviously changed things in a huge way. And I'm very thankful that we're in an industry where we could actually change really quickly. Like, we were able to adopt a lot of things that were already in place, but the industry was good with it. They adopted it as well, and it kind of allowed us to do stuff. So because technology has become a replacement for face-to-face, we do have to be conscious of that potential for fraud or for alterations, but it's also a huge benefit. So you remember at the beginning of this, I talked a lot about psychology. So tell me a little bit about how you guys feel about technology within the mortgage application process. And one of the, maybe list some stuff or list one thing that you think is like a huge benefit. And then one thing that maybe worries you or worries your clients. And I'm going to just go around and I'm going to name names because it's going to happen. Dean, you're first.
Client experience is awesome, especially compared to the world I came from before, because you can actually get back almost all the information that you need, a lot of documents, and then you're just left with oh, well, have conversations because this doesn't quite make sense to me, or this or this. So the client experience for me, technology-wise, is amazing.
And what worries you?
What worries me?
Or worries your clients?
Technology-wise, this came up just the other day on a call, and it's probably my comfort level with providing similar things, how it also can ask you for your bank account, to log in with your bank account to give immediate access to statements, because sometimes you're just worried about giving too much access. And also there could be the thing, I was going to actually ask this later, but kind of ties into possibly seeing too much or giving too much information. And it kind of blows me away still that some lenders will flat out tell you, don't send us this or anything unless we specifically ask for it, because if it's not what we ask for, we don't want to know about it. It kind of blurs that line a little bit, I think, with how much should we be sharing, like, or what? Anyways, sorry, I detracted there a little bit.
That's good.
But,
okay, so let's talk about the positives first. So I'm going to show you guys just so you guys all know. Okay, so here's the main velocity screen. You guys have all seen this. You've all logged in. If you go up here on the left, the black navigation bar, you can click add, and you'll see the very first thing is client experience. And so you'll see in here that this is basically asking for a first name, last name, and email address. Hopefully you guys can see this. And what you need to do is you need to, when you add those things, you have to hit the blue button that says add borrower, and then you go to next, and then it'll ask for the details about the email and any conditions and documents, and then it sends out the client experience. That client experience is really just the basis upon which we can kind of gather an online application from a client. It used to be, so I'm going to step back one kind of generation. It used to be that we had a very similar application process, but what it did is it had a kind of a specific URL website. So you'd have your own URL for Lindsay, one for Brent, one for Bobby Lee. So everyone would have their own little special application website. People would go in there, they'd do their application, and then they complete it. But the only way that they would get that is if they either went to your website and then clicked the little button that said apply now. So it was a little bit cumbersome because they had to go through a few steps. Or you sent them the link in an email. So this is kind of neat in that it puts that all together in a bit of a nicer package. It sends it out, it provides one kind of portal, and it's really quite nice. And then before that, we used to have basically just an internal site, which we would then type all that stuff up. So we could be on the phone with a client. We could have a client sitting in front of us, or they could fill in a paper application, which we then kind of fill on. So that's kind of the history backwards. But yeah, so the client experience is really fantastic. So thanks for that, Dean. The question that you had was about banking and that integration of banking. So this is part of a push within, I think, not only our industry, but we saw it. I think it's Australia has had this as part of their kind of banking and mortgage lending platform and experience. And it's called open banking. There is definitely, I understand the pushback from clients' perspective, because what it does is it essentially allows for the access to something like your checking account only, again, to view it. So it's not like we're going in and we're able to pull money or make payments or anything like that. It's just purely to view things. And I can understand why a client would be a little concerned about that, because it really opens up a fairly large access portal. The nice thing is that it makes it a lot less cumbersome. It means that there's probably a lot less errors. So whenever we ask for client, like bank statements from a client, guaranteed they're going to print something out that probably doesn't have their name, or it might not have their account number, or it might not have their ad. Something about it does not tie it back to the client. And this is always the issue. And every bank is different. You might be able to go onto like a mobile platform with TD, and it might print out perfectly, or you might be on the summary screen and it might have all the details, but the actual account screen doesn't have the details. So there's all these weird bits and pieces to this. And that's really the reason for the push into open banking, is that the industry is essentially trying to create a platform that allows for, really, it's supposed to be for a consistent look and feel to access to accounts, and a look and feel to the information that's within an account. I do understand the whole thing. So what I would do is I'd say to a client, if you're comfortable with us getting access to your account details purely for the purposes of this mortgage, and you have to be very specific. It's going to be specific to one thing. It's not for anything else. As long as we're clear about that, then you can say, hey, we've got this ability to link into an account that helps us bring in the information that we might need from your checking account or from the details from that account. If that's something that you're into, it just requires this connection, so we can do that connection through Velocity. If you don't know how to do the connection through Velocity, let me know. It's also in some of the training videos. But again, this is kind of like next level things. If the client's comfortable with it, then go ahead and proceed. If they're not, it's not something that I ever push, because I do understand the reluctance for people to provide access. Okay. Yes, Brent.
Yeah, just on that banking one, I'm with you on that one, Dean. I don't personally like it, but there is the nice thing about Velocity is you have the option to toggle that off, so it doesn't go out with the request. So I don't think I've ever sent it with that on. You know, once the update came, that we could remove it, but and it's for that exact reason.
It's such a strange thing because it's one little bit, and it's not a huge part of what we do, but it is designed to try to be a little bit more consistent and provide a little bit of convenience to the client. But at the same time, it almost feels like it's one step too far. So I get it, and I'm with you, Brent. It's not something that I proactively do on any files unless maybe it's a young person who's very progressive and really just doesn't have time to figure stuff out. Cool, that works. But yeah, I find that for most people, it's one step too far. Anyway,
Well, and it's a funny thing about it too, because I mean, we're going to ask for bank statements at some point, or we're going to ask for financial statements at some point. It's just when it's right in that initial, dump of information, for whatever reason, it just feels like it's too much right away.
yeah, it does feel like it's just that one step too far, and I'm kind of with that. Okay, Jamie, you're next. One thing. What was the question here? It was one thing that you love about technology that has kind of helped out, and something that you or your clients might be concerned about.
For me, as someone that's brand new, I've only logged into my Velocity a few times, and I've kind of played around a tiny bit. But I like, for me, for the technology of that part, I can move my tabs, so I can almost, like, it helps me know the process of what I'm looking for, because I need those hints, being so new and having no idea what I'm supposed to be sending out, what I'm talking about with my client. So I love that for me, because it gives me hints. And then the thing that would worry me, just because I don't always trust technology, the CRM that goes out, that would worry me. But then I remember that you can click the thing so it can come to me first, so that I can check it first. So I would do that 100% of the time. Otherwise, I would be almost scared to use it in case something went out wrong.
I'm with you. I'm going to go back to the positive.
Okay.
The tabs thing, totally love it. You've probably heard me talk about this.
Yeah.
I'm going to share my screen again. I'm going to go into Velocity. Okay, so cancel this. Okay, so if you guys haven't had a chance to look at it, but just really quickly here. If you go into me, and I believe, oh man, I always have to choose one or the other. It's either settings or profile, and I'm going to go profile. It's probably not going to be the right one. If I scroll down, no, it's not profile. It's under settings. If we go to me and settings, everything's under these two. These two things is either me. Go to me, settings or profile. It's one of those two. Okay, so under settings for the very first one. If we scroll down here to the bottom, you're gonna keep going. Deal dashboard and deals. So the deal dashboard, first off, the dashboard is the thing that appears, I'm not going to go to it right now, but it's the thing that appears where you've got columns of files as you go along. This just kind of indicates what you'll have on those deal dashboards. But the other thing that Jamie, you're specifically talking about is the deal order and new application order. So when you're taking a new application, you can actually set the order within which these various kind of topics or the various kind of tabs go. And also when you're viewing a deal, you can set how these go. So if you want, for whatever reason, let's say you're very task oriented, you can grab the tasks and you can move it right up to the top. And then what'll happen is, now that this has been changed, when I go into my deals, you'll see that tasks will be the first thing that I see. But I don't like it like that, so I'm just going to put it back down here. I like to see my borrowers, my assets, subject, property, mortgage request, conditions, and then notes, reminders, and tasks later on. So that's kind of how I like mine. But again, you can just click and drag, move these around however you like. You guys all fiddle around with that?
Pete?
Yep.
Sorry, what was the difference there again? Deal view versus new application. Is new application what the client sees?
Yep.
On their end? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so you can change both of these. And again, if it feels like this is the right order, like the borrower's assets and properties, subject property details, mortgage request, conditions. I just feel like it's sequential. Like I get to know you, then you tell me a bit about how much you own, what you owe, then we talk about the subject property, and we figure out how much mortgage you need. Right. So like it kind of works in the right order. If I put in conditions and documents first, it's like, well, this is weird. Why are you asking for all this stuff up front? You don't even know who I am. So again, it's kind of, to me, this is the order that seems to make sense. And if you guys ever want to kind of see that, you can go back to this video or just email me and I'll tell you what my order is.
I actually, on one of the training things, I actually took a picture because you were on your thing. I took a picture of it so I could go back and like put it in the right order on my own.
And it's really interesting because there are some people that love tasks, and so they'll actually have tasks as the first thing. They'll check those tasks and they'll set tasks so that they can kind of be constantly on top of things. That's not me. I just find that I just want to get straight to the file. And the other thing that I'll maybe briefly share on here as well is that I typically you'll see that this says auto expand. How do I change? I was trying to figure out how to auto expand this classic view. It actually, I always thought it had like a little check mark here for auto expand. Oh, that's what these are for. So these little check boxes would auto expand. So if I were to open my application, whenever I open up an application, if I have these checked, then they'll automatically be fully expanded versus collapsed. And for me, again, I'd rather see big picture. So I want to see the whole application at once. I just want to see these various tabs so that I can, if I want to go straight into the mortgage request, I can just choose it right away. So that's where that auto expand button comes in. So if you ever want these expanded when you open up, you can click them. If you don't, leave them unchecked. Okay, so really good points there. The CRM, Jamie, I am with you. Again, I'm very reluctant to have some sort of a device automatically sending stuff out without me seeing it because I just don't trust it. And I've always called CRMs a big black box that I don't know what goes in or out of. It just feels really I feel like it's up to the universe to figure out if it's actually going to go out. And I just don't trust it. I don't know if it's doing the right thing. So, you know, for a lot of industry veterans, there's a lot of people in the industry that still do like a spreadsheet. For instance, you know, Dustin Woodhouse, he's kind of known for having this huge giant spreadsheet. You don't have to have a huge giant spreadsheet. You can have a very simple one: name, file number, details, you know, whatever you want on that, you can have it in there. But it can be as simple as a spreadsheet that helps remind you when you need to follow up. When it comes to the CRM, I think there's some moves being made to make things a lot more sensible and a lot more workable. But that step of having that pre-check before it goes out to the clients, Jamie, I'm with you. I love that. That's, to me, almost a non, like it should be a non-question. Like, just have it go to you first, just so you can see it. Like, even if it's for something as simple as hi, you know, with the brackets name, and it's not filling in the name in properly. Like, something like that looks like absolute crap if it's not caught, right? Like, it looks like you're not even looking at this thing. Someone's just running this. So that's why I like these things to kind of go to you first. So good point. All right, Lindsay, you're next. A positive and a negative.
I think for me, being newer, the app has been kind of fun. I thought that was a positive, just with people that I know. If I don't know, there's some house that they want, or just daydreaming about a house, I'm like, oh, well, look at this. This is how much income you need in order to buy that house. So I've liked the app. And then what concerns me a little bit, because I'm not great with technology, is dealing with clients that maybe aren't as comfortable with technology and with the client experience uploading their documents on there. I know that it's not difficult, but if I were to give that to my dad or something, he would not even look at it. He's like, I have no idea. I'm not sure. I don't know what to do. So that, I don't know, maybe there aren't people out there like that, but
Oh, I agree. These are really good points. So let's go back to the My Mortgage Toolbox thing. So you guys all have access to My Mortgage Toolbox. If you have not already downloaded it, I'm just going to show you. So My Mortgage Toolbox looks like so. It will come up with your name and your stuff on it. So if you guys all done that, that's great. Make sure you're always signed in as the admin. So your login information for the admin stuff will be the same login info as for your Dominion Lending Center's intranet. Same email, same password. So just make sure you log into that. The cool stuff. So this is when we're talking about technology and allowing for access to clients and that whole client experience. Even though this can't take an application yet, guaranteed it's in the works and it should be coming out soon. But the nice thing about this tool is that it puts a whole bunch of the stuff that you just mentioned, Lindsay, like the ability to make a calculation to figure out how much you can afford. It puts that tool into clients' hands and it can be done fairly quickly. So you can send out a text. It gets the app to the client. They really don't have to do much other than click the thing, download it from the App Store. Very simple. If you ever want to try to do a fun exercise, go through the pre-approval part of the app and see how fast you can do it. I think the fastest I was able to do it was about 42 seconds. So you can test yourself and then see how fast you can go, and then say to clients, look, if you really want to try, beat my record of 42 seconds to see how fast you can pre-approve yourself. I'm competitive, so it's kind of one of the things that I would do. But say it in your own words, but like there's fun ways to make this kind of cool for people. So again, there's this kind of stuff. Really good tool. I think this is one of the best uses of technology, and I'm super happy that we have it at our disposal. So definitely thank you for mentioning it, because I think that this is a really good tool. If you're not using it, we'll actually probably go over it in more detail, so I won't spend too much time. The drawbacks, we're talking about client comfort. This is huge. And it comes back to the whole psychology thing. So we're talking a little bit about clients trusting us and knowing that what they're doing is not, I think the biggest worry is that it's something that they're doing with technology puts them at risk, right? And so that's the whole idea of that open banking concept. Even I'm not super keen on it. So this is where client comfort definitely comes into play. There's a lot of other bits and pieces that that come into play. I guess the biggest way that I can kind of tell you to work through these things is to really try to ask questions of your clients and find out how comfortable they are with technology. Take some cues. So I would look at someone who is, I would say, like 50 years and younger as probably being proficient. This is that new school stuff, right? Everything's to me is either meeting, proficient, exceeding, right? So most people 50 and under, proficient, they're probably proficient. They've got computers. They've been working with computers for decades. They've had cell phones for a long time. So most of those people will be proficient. And to me, when I have someone that's that age, I would simply say, are you comfortable with, providing your information or doing an application or whatever it is that you're trying to do using an online platform or through your mobile phone? It's a really simple question, but a lot of times you'll uncover if a person's not into it. I have a client who's in his early 30s who does not love technology at all, purely does not. So phone stuff, or he's in the office, that's it. But you might also encounter someone who's 70 and maybe they're a computer whiz, right? So just feel free to ask the question. And that kind of comes back to some of the stuff that we talked about right in the intro, like honesty, right? Just purely asking a question and then trying to figure out what exactly they're all about. What is their comfort level? So definitely good points. All right, Bobby Lee, I'm going to put you on the spotlight next.
I think the biggest thing for me with the technology piece is that it allows us to move around the client. Whether we take a laptop and meet them in a public place to do an application or do it over Zoom, but it just gives us a lot more flexibility for the client to move around them for whatever they whatever way they want us to do the application.
And what about a hesitation or a drawback or a negative with technology? What's something that your clients might be worried about?
I think the biggest thing obviously is going to be protection of the information that they give us.
Awesome. Really good points. So I love the way that you framed the positive about technology, because realistically, like part of the technology piece for me has always been self-centered. Like I like technology, and I feel like technology has helped us to kind of do what we do better. For instance, this is going to come back to our history at White House. So before we moved into our current building, the white building that we have on 27th Street, we had an office just kind of around the corner and down a little ways. And we had 3 offices full of physical files and file cabinets. I kid you not, that's how much we had, because we closed, like last year, we closed nearly 800 mortgages. So you can imagine, you know, I don't even have a file folder here. I would love to show you guys what they would look like. Not quite, most files are not quite this big, but they're probably half of this. And that's really weird. Like you think, how is it that the file can be half of that? Before we had a lot of what we have today, which is PDFs, data storage on disk, you know, everything is done on computer. Before we had that, everything was done by paper, and people would bring in entire packages of, like, so you might have an income tax return that is 80 pages. And instead of scanning that, it would be copied, because that's all we had. We copied and we put it in a file. And so we had so much space that was occupied by files. And the technology piece has simply allowed us to be a lot more flexible with how we kind of collect and store that stuff. And so not only from kind of a self-centered, hey, this is easier for me. And the reason I brought up this whole file thing is not just because from a standpoint of like, we're using a lot of space and spending a lot of money on storing stuff, but it was in ease of getting to the documents. So if I ever wanted to find a document, I had to physically go into the file room and find it, and guaranteed it wasn't in the right spot. Guaranteed. This is when you have that many, when you have thousands of files, they're not going to be in exactly the right spot. So to me, if we store files properly, which is what we do using the file number, so like the VDLWM 12345, if we do it using that, which is what I do every time. So however you guys file store it, as soon as it comes to me as a compliance document, it gets labeled as a particular file that goes into storage. It's very easy for me to find files. And not only is it easy for me to find files, but I can find them not when I'm just in the office, but I can find them here at my home office, or if I'm at a client's home, or if I'm at a coffee shop and I get a client call. So whatever you're doing, technology has kind of given us the ability to really hone our ability to get stuff or figure stuff out, or even like sometimes I'll get a call from a client saying, hey, do you happen to have my 2021 tax return? And if I'm on the road, I can still find it because everything to me is accessible through Dropbox. So it's really cool. Again, personally, that's really cool. But I love the way that you flipped it around, Bobby Lee, to being flexible around the client too, because technology has not only allowed us to kind of personally be able to access stuff, but it allows us to be a lot more flexible and like you say, move around the client. So I love that. And that kind of comes back to that question of, hey, can you send me my 21 tax return? I can do that because I have the access to everything no matter where I am. So I love that idea. And it really does apply to every part of the application process. And yes, the idea of protection in terms of a negative or a kind of a trouble spot, protection is super important. And that's one of the reasons why in one of our previous talks, we chatted about protecting our computers, making sure we're password protected. I guess I should go around and make sure you guys all got your LastPass set up. It's a little confusing at first, but trust me, once you've used it for a while, it'll get better. But really, really good. And it's such a solid thing to have. And I don't know if I told you guys this last time. I've told a few of you probably, but I had one of my computers crash on me. So before this little laptop over, where is it? There. Before that laptop, I had a PC. It decided to die like at 13 months. It was just after the warranty expired. The hard drive quit. I needed access to like do stuff now. And so I went over to Staples and I bought that one. And because of LastPass, I was up and running within a few minutes. It didn't take me any time to actually get going. I simply installed LastPass on the computer. All my websites and all my passwords are right there. I don't even need, like, it's not like I needed to go actually find whatever the previous websites were. They're just all there. So protection is good in the sense that it helps protect our clients and all their documents and details, but it also kind of protects us from, lost time in case of issues with computers or things like that. So make sure you use adequate personal information protection. All right, Brent, do you have anything to add to this lovely conversation?
I do. I'll try to be quick on that one. And just a note on LastPass. So Pete got me to sign up for LastPass almost 2 years ago now.
I don't get a commission, I should say. I don't.
The very first day, I locked myself out of Velocity because I didn't know how to use it properly. So I changed my password to something I couldn't recover, and it was a nightmare. But now it's amazing. It's a great tool. So in terms of technology, for me, there's a few things. Accessibility, like Bobby Lee is saying, but for me, from more so the broker point of view, I mean, I ran my entire business from Quebec last year. Didn't have to meet a client face to face at all. So that gives us kind of that flexibility in terms of that, and it gives accessibility to clients as well. You know, if I'm dealing with a client in the Lower Mainland, I can do that. I don't have to meet him face to face. It kind of opens up that pool of potential clients that we have because we can manage our business through technology. The other piece for me is time saving. At the end of the day, we have all these tools and they're designed to save us time. Whether it's the client experience that stops us from having to, do a paper application or meet somebody face to face, whatever it is. And because we're all self-employed, obviously we have to value our time. So if you're working on a file and it takes you 12 hours, when using technology, it could take you 5 hours. That's a big difference in your hour and what you're making per hour and per file. So I think if we look at it from that point of view, I'm a huge fan of technology for that type of thing. And I think we do have a lot of really good tools that do that. Obviously Velocity is amazing. The CRM, I'm still in the middle on, just because I'm not super comfortable on it or with it. And even our app, I mean, that's an amazing app. And I use it every day almost. Now in terms of downfall, I think there are potential pitfalls with technology where maybe we try to automate a bit too much sometimes, and you can lose touch with your client a little bit. It's there to aid us, it's there to assist us, but it's not there to replace, being the advisor for your client, being that person that they come to when they need you and picking up the phone. I was listening to a podcast yesterday where a broker doesn't answer his phone ever. That's just his general rule. He doesn't answer his phone. He gets a voice to text from his voicemail. He'll text the person back, and everything is done through technology. He will book a call down the road, but his first point of contact isn't that. And to me, that's just desensitized or depersonalizing the experience for somebody. And if we're in the business of building rapport with our clients and building trust and, trying to find those common ground that we have with them so we can relate to them, all these different things that we do in these calls, we have that potential to lose that if you go a little overboard on the technology side. So to me, that's really the only downside I see to it. And again, like other people mentioned, whether it's accessibility for somebody that isn't comfortable with technology, has concerns about security, those are all valid points too. Not much else other than that to add.
Awesome. I really appreciate those points. There's nothing for me to add on all that. What I did want to do is as we go through these, I love the ideas that we're able to kind of bring together, but I realize that this mortgage application process is probably going to take us more than one session. So I'm not going to end just yet, because I am going to talk a little bit about what we chatted about at the beginning, which is the psychology part. But I just want to let you know that we're going to carry this on next week. I really like this topic because it is quite extensive. There's a lot for us to talk about in this whole process. But we've kind of laid a bit of the groundwork for how technology is going to help us. And we talked a little bit about the psychology behind or the thoughts behind what it is about this process. I'll put this question out to you guys. So when markets, so let's just say the stock market, when markets take a dive, why do they take a dive?
They take a dive because there's a loss of confidence in the market.
Exactly.
Typically, is my understanding of it. Anyways, I mean, I'm not a big stock market guy, but
confidence. Okay, so when real estate markets were hot last year and into the beginning of this year, why were they hot? What was it about the real estate market that caused people to be like, I need to buy that house and I'm not going to put any subjects on my offer?
It was the I don't know what the right word is.
There's an acronym for
it. FOMO, fear of missing out.
Yes. Fear, right?
I mean,
so the very first
that's
word
really
is
what
fear.
it was.
So this is the craziest part. So when I was doing my education in commerce, one of the cool things that I learned, and this was super shocking to me about economics, is that economics is all psychology. So there is no magic in economics aside from a little bit of calculations about supply and demand. But the magic in economics is that it's all an art. And the art is it's all psychology. And it's about what people fear and what they expect, and what if they're expecting something, if they're disappointed or if they're extra super excited about it. And everything comes back to psychology. And this kind of made me realize that, me being that black and white guy, it's either this or this. I realized that this is so strange because I always thought that if I was going into like commerce, that it would just all be black and white. And you come to realize that commerce is all many, many shades of gray. And a lot of it comes back to how humans act and interact. So when I wanted to talk about the process of the mortgage application process, I really, to me, it comes back to how do people interact? How do people kind of come into a scenario where they're dealing with high stress levels? So when you're buying a house, it's very, very expensive. So it's the biggest purchase you're going to make. It's going to be stressful. You're also, as Brent very well knows, you're going to be moving. That's also very stressful. Sorry to bring it up.
That's why I look like I do today, everybody.
Brent is a perfect example. But so there's a lot of stress involved in that. And a lot of that stuff, it comes out, it ends up coming out as part of this process. So what I want to kind of leave with today is to give you guys a sense and to get your wheels turning about what it is that you can do to not only help alleviate people's stress, to give them a little bit of peace of mind, but to help make this process go smoothly. And I'll give you a few of my takes on the whole thing. And then next time when we chat, we'll talk about how we actually get clients to kind of start that process, the various conversations that we might have, and then how we kind of keep going with them. Jamie, do you have a question? No? Okay. So when it comes to the whole concept of kind of putting people at ease and letting them kind of go through this process, some of it comes back to our whiteboard here. So questions. So when we're asking questions, a lot of times if we ask questions, people will either open up or people will not. And that kind of comes back to, do they trust you yet? So I don't think I even wrote trust on here, but I should probably write trust, because that's pretty key. So trust is always important. So one of the things that I try to do, and again, I'm going to tell you about my take on this whole thing, is in order for me to start to gain that trust, I start with an introduction. So we talk about communications. I start with an introduction. Hey, my name is Pete. I was born in Budapest. My parents moved to Vernon when I was 3. I know, weird. Vernon is a small town. Why from Budapest to Vernon? Because my mom's uncle lived in Edgewood, which if any of you know where Edgewood is, I'll give you bonus points. So that's why we came here. Grew up in Vernon. I went to school at UBC, did my degree in commerce and economics, worked at an accounting firm, absolutely hated it. Couldn't do it. Did 2 years of articling and I was like, nope, no doing it. From there, I worked in banking. From there, I worked in insurance. I actually spent a decade in insurance. And then from insurance, I worked in banking. And from banking, I tailored into lending, specifically commercial lending. And then from commercial lending, I went into work with Deb. So I've been doing mortgage brokering for 13 years. I also manage the brokerage. I make sure that all the compliance files are done. So I'm overlooking 800 files per year. What I've done there is I've given you a little bit of a personal side. Everyone always finds it interesting that I was born in Budapest. That's kind of fun. So kind of give them a little bit of a sense of personal stuff. And then I build upon why you might trust me. So I always find, and I absolutely hated accounting, but people trust accountants. So I always throw that in there because, I mean, who could ever be mad at an accountant? Other than possibly like government organizations that go after them if they've done something really wrong. But most people do trust accountants. So I always throw that in there. Insurance is kind of cool because it's another layer of kind of, if you know, so banking has 4 pillars, just so you guys know. There's the transactional side of banking, there is lending, there is insurance, and there is investing. So banking has 4 pillars. And so if you know those 4 pillars, then you kind of have a really good sense of a person's financial kind of well-being. So anyway, so I throw in insurance and then I throw in lending. So so there you have it. So kind of that's my spiel. That's how I get people to understand who I am. And from there, I can go to the questions. And there I can start to understand who they are. And that's kind of the start of what we do. So again, we're talking about psychology. We're talking about really listening when we're asking questions, really starting to listen for not only the black and white, but listen for the gray. Because a lot of times people might give you some weird indication, and it might be visual. So if you're in person, you might see tension, or you might see relaxation. There's all these little subtle things, or it can be the sound of their voice. They might start talking faster if they're really nervous, or they might slow down if they're relaxed. So all these little subtle things, and some of them come back to what are our purposes, right? Like, so we're going to go back to the whiteboard here. If we go back here, you'll see that purpose was up here, right? How much experience they have with lending and borrowing, timeframes, payments, rapport. So these are all coming back to those questions that we're going to do. But that's the basis upon which we start. We start by kind of giving people a reason to trust us, and then really asking questions and kind of listening to what they're saying, and listening to what they're doing and what their body is telling us, what their voice is telling us. And these are the subtle things. So we'll actually get into the questions that we might ask next time. If you've gone through the application process, some of you guys have done a lot of lending. If you've done this, you'll know the questions that we tend to ask. But again, if we think of it like we have on our velocity application, we want to know about the person, then we want to know about their employment, we want to know about their assets and liabilities, and we want to know about the property and what we're doing. So really the questions become fairly simple, but if you run through it a few times, you'll start to see that there's a pattern to that, and then you kind of get to know the various questions that you might ask. So that's what I wanted to chat about today. Do you guys have any questions on the reasons or the kind of whole concept of the application process being really about just people stuff?
Hey, Pete.
Yep.
When it comes to your spiel with people about yourself and your introduction, do you find that you change that as it relates to where the client comes from? Like, let's say it comes from a referral source that you consistently work with. Let's say it's somebody just off the street making a cold call to you, et cetera. Do you tailor it to each?
I would say so. Yeah, some people might know a little bit more about me, but I do try to. I think in the past, I've been a little bit more loose with how I do that intro. And I find that being loose always leads to problems. And again, I've kind of given you my intro. I haven't given you the whole thing. So you're gonna have to tune in next time for why there's more to this. Oh, hang on one second here. There's a little bit more to this. And the part that we talked about was psychology. And then the second part that we're going to get into next time, maybe I'll just blurt it out now so you guys don't have to wait. I know you won't be able to sleep until next week unless I blurt this out, but the next part is expectations and setting expectations. So that's the second part of psychology, because if we know kind of what to expect and we can kind of set a certain bar, then we can kind of aim to achieve that. So what I was saying, Brent, is that I've been loose about it because it seemed like if someone already knew me, then I wasn't going to get into the spiel. But therein lies a problem, because then I haven't given everyone the same level playing field. So I do, and nowadays I still go back and I say, hey, I know that we know each other, but I'm going to give you my spiel anyway, because just in case you need to know a little bit about me so you know why I'm here and why I do what I do, I'm going to give you my background. It doesn't take long. It's a really quick conversation, but I find that even the people that might know you, they still appreciate that.
Totally, totally. And you know me, Pete, I'm pretty free flowing with everything I do, but but at the end of the day, you're absolutely right. When it comes to things like that, you miss an opportunity to present a bit about yourself, and at the same time, that helps people find some common ground. Who knows? Maybe somebody's mother was born in Budapest, and they would never know that. Pete didn't mention he was born there. So it kind of takes that away from being able to find that. So yeah, no, I agree with you fully on that, Pete.
Yeah, and it does provide that level playing field, because I always find that we all know that assumptions can lead to bad decisions, and assumptions can lead to bad everything, right? If we assume something's going to be what it is, we could very well be wrong. And I think the same is when we assume people know about us, because if they don't ever kind of get the whole spiel, then they're going about on some prior other knowledge. Whereas if we give every client the ability to get to know us the exact same, then I think every client has the ability to open up to us. And if we don't give everyone the same benefit of the doubt, then it feels like some clients get advantage versus others don't. So yeah, I think just having your regular spiel, you'll get to know what it is. Everyone's unique and different. You guys don't have to say you're born in Budapest. So but really, line. There's going to be a spiel, and I have Lindsay. But I have I'm really I've got such a clientele that's kind of from my past sporting background. So whether that's triathlon, whether it's judo, I still have clients that are from when I was in judo when I was super young. But it's really weird how these people they know me because of that common thing that we did, or my high school, my high school people are crazy. I don't even know how we're so close this far after high school, but I still have 200 plus people on Facebook that are from my high school graduating class. So it's not like we had a huge class. So really it's kind of interesting, but everyone kind of gets to know you. And I think my sense after having done this for 13 years is that everyone should be given that same level introduction. Any other questions? You guys are cool. This has been super fun. I really appreciate you guys and all your input during these sessions, because like I say, this is a roundtable. Is there anything that you really want me to hit on next time? Like, do you want me to get scripted? I don't want to get scripted, but if you want me to get scripted, if you wanted me to go through one-on-ones and say, hey, I'm going to be client and you're going to be broker, do we go through that? Because I always find that it can be interesting, but a lot of people do not like to do that. And I find it very old school too.
I say skip
There's
the
a lot of
scripting
sour
piece.
faces.
No, I think for me, like I can talk to, when I'm looking for maybe referral partners or something, I can talk to friends and family and maybe some realtors that I knew in the past or whatever. But if I am talking to somebody who I have no idea who they are, you know, they're a realtor in town, what do I say to them? That's what I would like to know. Like, how do you start that conversation? To just introduce myself. I don't want to just phone them up and say, hey, I'm Lindsay Gill, I'm the mortgage broker here.
Yeah. This is where to me, this is like a really good opportunity for your personality to shine. So what you say might be very different than what Jamie says. And it might be very different from what Dean says. You know, if it were me and I'm like super hungry and I really wanted to get some mortgage files going, I'd go up to people and say, why are you not sending me more business? Because
random.
But look at the response.
Oh, Lindsay, he's being serious and he's right.
Look at the response though, because if we say, like, if you, okay, I'm very much a tale of opposites, because no, so I'll give you a few opposites. I love technology, but I love old things. I love black and white, but I relish the fact to understand gray. When it comes to something like a very serious relationship, oh, I'll give you another one. When I go to Baskin Robbins, I choose vanilla because I love vanilla. But like one of the cool things that we can do in our industry that helps set you, Brent, stop it. One of the things that can really set you apart is your ability to connect with people. And I think Deb does this really well. If you ever want to see someone who knows how to talk to people, hang around Deb for a little bit, because she's not afraid to say what I just said. She's not afraid to create a comment or put out a comment that will cause people to laugh like that. You know who else is really good at this? And there's this, we can kind of get into personality types, but we'll do that on another day. But Gary Morris, if you ever listen to him on our president's calls, so Gary is the president of Dominion Lending Center's group. Gary is phenomenal at asking questions that come out of the absolute left field, the leftist of left fields. And it's just hilarious. Like if you ever get a chance to hang around Gary, he's not intimidating. Don't ever be intimidated by Gary. He is the nicest guy ever. But he'll put out crazy stuff. Like he'll put out weird, like just weird questions, and people love it. Like he's a very captivating individual. And you can see why he's the top of an organization. He's not the smartest. He admits he's not the smartest. And if you hang out with him, you'll realize he's not the smartest, but he has so many ideas going on that he'll throw weird things out and they stick, or there's something that sticks in someone's mind. And if you say to someone, I am a new broker, you know, I'm going to say this in a super plain voice, but I am a new broker and I'd love for the opportunity to get in front of you. Vanilla, right? Very vanilla. But if you say, why aren't you sending me more business? Then it's like, well, I don't know, like all of a sudden either their back's up and they're thinking about you.
That's what I'd be worried about though.
Yes, but that's good, because it's just like if you look at news, right? What is the first thing that comes on? It's the worst thing possible. And sometimes the worst thing possible sticks in our heads. But because it's stuck in your head, this is that psychology piece. Because it's stuck in your head, they're going to think of you first.
And
It's
Lindsay,
really
you'll
weird, and it's not a negative
realtors.
thing. What's that, Brent?
And I mean, everybody figures out their own approach and how they
Yes.
try to, you know, gain more referral partners or whatnot. I mean, whether it's finding common ground with somebody. I mean, Lindsay, you were a teacher for years. You know, lots of teachers have become realtors. You know, maybe there's something common that you have you can share with them. You'll find your own way, but Pete's absolutely right. Like being direct, and people will remember it, no question about it. And at the time, they may not have anything for you, but down the road they may think, hey, you know what? I'll give her a shot. I'll refer her to somebody, and away you go.
Okay.
But
So
but
I
it's
should
also
try that this week.
Be comfortable with yourself too, Lindsay. I mean, if you're not being authentic and comfortable, I mean, it's going to come across. But
yeah.
I
think that's also the takeaway too, is that you can't. So while we can all kind of push outside our boundaries and our comfort zone, you don't want to be, like Brent says, unauthentic. I honestly don't like the word authentic, because I feel like it's the meaning of authentic has gotten so convoluted nowadays that people just say it because they think they're trying to say that they're authentic, but they actually don't. They aren't being like, it's gotten to the point where it's too used. Like, actually be authentic, just be you. So part of it is, be you, and understand where your boundaries are, and understand where you think you can make an impact. And that's not to say that everyone has to be a Gary Morris, because imagine if everyone was a Gary, we'd all be screwed, because everyone would be running around doing everything, and nothing would ever get done, because everyone's always got all these ideas, and it's all crazy. This world is made up of so many different types of people, and that also means that this world is also full of a whole bunch of different clients, and you're going to find your clients. Right? The clients that love the Lindsay method are going to gravitate to you. And the clients that love Brent are going to gravitate to Brent and Dean. So everyone works and finds their niche, and they find their people. And the people will also find you, but you have to kind of put it out there a little bit. You have to kind of say, hey, what is the thing that I'm comfortable doing that is kind of cool and fun, and people might remember. There's a spot there, and there's more Lindsay. I still think we've talked about this. There's more Lindsay in there that's yet to come out, but it's a comfort level. So it's knowing how to kind of get to that comfort level.